Hello everyone, welcome back to the new episode of our tutorial series on blood bank management system. In the previous episode, we have successfully created a business logic layer for our user module, and in this episode, we will create data access layer for our user module. So without further ado, let's move to our tutorial. First of all, let us open our project, which is blood bank management system. So I'll just double click on blood bank management system.solution file, and it will open on our Visual Studio IDE. For now, I'm using Visual Studio 2015. You can use any version of Visual Studio. So this was the business logic layer we created in our previous video. In this video, we are creating data access layer. So let's go to Solution Explorer and let's create a new folder. So go to the project and right click on it and click on add and go to new folder, and let's give this name as DAL, short form for data access layer. And inside this folder we will have to create a user DAL class. So right click on this folder and click on add and click on new item, and from here select class and give its name here. So just double click on it or select all and then give its name as user DAL and press enter or click on add. So this will be our user DAL for our blood bank management systems user module, and here we will write methods to select data, insert, update and delete data for our user module in blood bank management system. So here first step is to create a static string method. Create a static string method to connect database. So it will be static and string, its name will be my connection string. So my connection strng is equals to configuration manager with capital C and capital M, and then dot connection strings, and here we need to pass a connection string we created in our app.config file while connecting database with our application. I think in second or third video. Connection string dot connection string, that's it. Don't worry about the error, we will solve it. Hover over the error, click on show potential fixes, and we don't have here. We need to add a configuration file in our references. So go to Solution Explorer and in references just right click on references and add reference. Here we need to search about configuration. So this is it. So select this one and click on OK, and I think I forgot G here. So this will add a reference to our configuration manager. Now hover over the error and click on show potential fixes and click on the first one, which is using system.configuration. So it will import our configuration in header or top section. So that's it. Now we are ready to go to create method to select, insert, update and delete data. So I'll just go to the new line, and for better code management we will create separate regions for separate methods. So to create region you just need to type hash or pound sign then region, and it will be select data from database, and we also need to end the region. So press enter and click hash end region. That's it, and between this region we will write method for selecting data from database. So this method will be of data table type. So let's type public data table, and its name will be select parentheses and then curly braces. Don't worry about the errors, so just hover over the error and click on show potential fixes and using system.data, and we will still have one error which is in this name select. This method requires something to be returned, so that's the error. We need to return data table from this method. So first of all, don't worry about the error. First of all, we will create a database connection or create an object to create a database connection. So let's create an object to connect database. So SQL connection con is equals to new SQL connection. Hover over the error and select show potential fixes and select the first one, which is using system.data.sql client. It fixes the error. So the second one is to create a data table to hold the data from database and also return the data using that data table from this method. So create a data table to hold the data from database. So data table dt is equals to new and data table, and we'll also return data table, which is dt, and this solves the error. Now after we create a data table, we need to write a code to actually get the data from database. For this we will use try, catch and final block, so that if we have any error while running our application, it will not show random value, or it will not crash our application. Instead it will show a message in a message dialog box. So let's create a try catch block. So try and then catch with exception ex, and last one is finally. In final section we just close the database connection. So close database connection dot close. That's it. And in catch section we usually display message if there is any exceptional error. So display error message if there's any exceptional errors. So for this we'll write message box dot show ex dot message. That's it. And we need to give a semicolon here, and don't worry about the error, just hover over the error and click on show potential fixes and using system.windows.forms. That's it. And inside the try block we will write the actual code to get the data from database. So the first step is to write SQL query to get data from database. So let's create a string variable to hold the SQL query. So is string SQL is equals to select all from asterisk means all tbl underscore users, and tbl users is the name of our database. So let's take a look in our server explorer, blood bank management system, and inside tables we have tbl users. That's the query to get the data from database. And the next step is to create a SQL command to execute our SQL query. So create SQL command to execute query. So SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command, and it will need SQL query and database connection to pass. So SQL con. That's it. Now we need to create a SQL data adapter to hold the data temporarily from database. So create SQL data adapter to hold the data from database temporarily. So SQL data adapter is equal to new SQL data adapter, that's it. And here we need to pass SQL command, which is cmd, that's it. Now let's open database connection. Connection.open, and finally the data from SQL data adapter will need to be transferred into the SQL data table. So let's do that. Transfer data from SQL data adapter to data table. So adapter.fill dt, so that's it. So here we have just written a code to get the data from database and execute the query, and finally transfer data from SQL data adapter to data table. So this is it. We have successfully created a method to select data from database for our user module. Now another method we need to create is method to insert data in database for our user module. So let us create another region for that. So has region insert data into database for user module, and then has in region. So this method will be of Boolean data type. So public bool insert, and we also need to pass user bll u. Don't worry about the errors, just hover over the user BRL and click on show potential fixes using, select the first one, which is using blood bank management system.bll, and it will fix our error, but we'll still have an error in our insert because this method requires a boolean value to be returned. For that, let us create a boolean variable and set its default value to false. So create a boolean variable and set its default value to false. So bool is success is equals to false, and let's return this boolean variable as well. So return is success, that's it. And between these two code, we'll write a code to insert data into database for our user module. And the first step is to create an object of SQL connection to connect our database. So let us do that first. Create an object of SQL connection to connect database. So SQL connection com is equals to new, and then SQL connection, that's it. After that, we'll start our try catch block to write the actual code to insert data into database. After try, we need a catch block. Inside catch, we need exception ex, and here we will display error message if there's any exceptional errors. For that, message box dot show ex dot message, and last one is finally we just close the database connection. So close database connection dot close. That's it, guys. Now we need to write the actual code inside our try block, and here the first step is to write a SQL query. For that, we'll create a string variable to store the query. Insert query. So string SQL is equals to insert into tbl underscore users, and we need to pass the column names as well. So I'll go to Server Explorer and look at our columns inside tbl users. So we have username. We don't need to pass a value in user ID column, because user ID is auto increment. That means user ID is filled automatically from our database. So we need to pass value for username, email, password, full name, contact address, and added date and image name. So let's write the name of these columns. First one is username, and then email, password, contact. So username, email, password, full name, then contact. Okay, full underscore name, then contact. After contact we have address, added date, and image name. So address, added underscore date, and the last one is image underscore name. After that values, and then space, and here need to pass the actual value. For that I'll just copy the name of all this column and paste inside here. And before each column, after values, we'll write @sign, because we will pass the value in this using our parameters and user BLL. So just write @, and that's it. Now let's go to the new line, press enter here, and the second step is to create a SQL command to pass the value into our SQL query. Here we need to pass the value, so create a SQL to pass the value in our query. So SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command, and we'll pass SQL and database connection. That's it. Now we need to create a parameters to pass the value. Create the parameters to pass the value, to get the value from UI and pass it on SQL query above. So it will be cmd.parameters.add with value, and then first one is @username. Here it will be u.username. That's it. Similarly, let's create for email, cmd.parameters.add with value, and then @email, u.email, and then cmd.parameters.add with value, @password, u.password, cmd.parameters.add with value, full underscore name, u.full name, and then contact, parameters.add with value, contact, u.contact, and then cmd.parameters.add with value. This one is for address, u.address, sorry, address, and then cmd.parameters.add with value, added underscore date. I think I missed it. Added date, u.added date, and the last one is image name. So cmd.parameters.add with value, image underscore name, u.image.name. That's it. We have successfully created all the parameters to pass the value from form to our SQL query. Now we need to open our database connection. So open database connection. For that, connection dot open, and then we will create an integer type variable to hold the value after executing the query, and if the query is executed successfully, the value will be greater than 0, else it will be 0. So let's create that. Create an integer variable to hold the value after the query is executed. So int rows is equal to cmd dot execute non-query. So the value of rows will be greater than 0 if the query is executed successfully, else it will be 0. So let's check it out if the query is executed successfully or not. So if rows is greater than 0, then query executed successfully and the value of each success will be true, else fail to execute query and the value of each success remains false. So that's it. We have successfully created a method to insert data into database for our user module. Now we will create a next method to update the data in our database for our user module. So let's create another region here. So I'll create hash region and int region as well, and inside this region, so it will be update data in database for user module. And similar to the insert method, it will also be of Boolean type. So public bool update, and we need to pass user bll and as previous, first create a Boolean variable and set its default value to false. So bool is success is equals to false, and then we will also return this value. Return is success and the error is fixed. And then let's create an object for database connection. So SQL connection con is equals to new SQL connection, and then we'll write a try catch block so that our code will be bulletproof, and if there occurs any error, and it will be handled by our catch block. So try and then catch will have exception, exception ex here display error message if there's any exceptional error. So message box dot show ex dot message. That's it. And finally we'll close the database connection. Finally close database connection. So connection dot close, and let's write the query inside the try block. So here first step is to create a string variable to hold the SQL query. So string SQL is equals to update tbl underscore users set, and we'll set the new values for each and every column. So let's check out our columns and set the new values. So first one will be username is equals to @username, and then email is equals to email, and then password will be password. After password, what do we have? Password, then full name, and then contacts. So name is equals to underscore name, and contact is equals to contact. After contact, we have address, added date, and image name. So it's equal to address, added underscore date is equals to added underscore date, and the last one is image underscore name is equals to image underscore name. And we'll also need to append where keyword, so that we can update and specific rows or a specific value for a specific data or a specific individual person. So where user underscore id is equals to user underscore id. So this is the SQL query to update data in our database. I think everything is correct, so we'll just validate it when we add actual functionality in our user module. So for now, let's press enter and go to new line, and let's go to our new step. And the new step is to create a SQL command to execute query and also pass the values to SQL query. So SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command, and here we will spell SQL and database connection. Now pass the values to SQL query. For this, we will create parameters. So cmd dot parameters dot add with value, and then username username, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value email email, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with everything is same as our insert method. So password dot password, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value full underscore name dot full name, and then parameters dot add with value contact dot contact, and then address and then parameters dot add with value add date underscore date u dot add date and cmd dot parameters dot add with value at the rate image name u dot image name. And here we also need to pass user ID because we are not changing user ID, but we need to specify which user is being modified, so we need to add user ID in our parameters. So cmd dot parameters dot add with value at the rate user underscore ID u dot user ID. So that's it for parameters. Now we need to create an integer variable to hold the value after the query is executed. So int rows is equals to cmd dot execute non-query. That's it. And if the query is executed successfully, then the value of rows will be greater than 0, else it will be 0. So let's check it out. If the value of rows is greater than 0, if the query is executed successfully, then the value of rows will be 0, else it will be 0, rows will be greater than 0. So let's check it out. So if rows is greater than 0, then query executed successfully and the value of is success will be true, else fail to execute query and the value of is success remains false. So that's it guys, we have successfully created a method to update data for our user module in blood bank management system as well. Now we will create another method to delete the data from database for our user module. So let us go to the last of this method. After in region we will create another region. So region, it will be delete data from database for our user module, and also we also need to in the region, and between this region we will create a method. This method will also be of Boolean type as in insert and update method. So public bool and then delete. We also need to pass user BLLU, and here first step is to create a Boolean variable and set its default value to false. So bool is success is equals to false, and then we also return this Boolean variable, so it's success and our error is fixed. And then we'll create an object, static method or static object, I think static method. So create a static method. After this we need to create an object for SQL connection. So create an object for SQL connection. So SQL connection con is equals to new SQL connection, and then we will create try catch block. So try and then catch exception ex. Here we will display error if there's any exceptional error. So display error message if there's any exceptional errors. So message box dot show ex dot message, and the last one is finally. So here we'll just close the database connection. Connection dot close, and in the try block we'll write SQL query to delete the data from database. So let's create that. Create a string variable to hold the SQL query to delete data. So string SQL is equals to delete from tbl underscore users where user underscore id is equals to @user underscore id. That's it. Now we need to create SQL command to execute the query. So SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command, and we'll pass SQL and connection as well. And another step is to pass the value through parameters. Here we don't need to pass the value to each and every column. We will just need to pass the value for our user ID column. So cmd dot parameters dot add with value, and then @user underscore id u dot user id. That's it, guys. Now we need to create an integer variable to hold the value after query is executed. So integer rows is equals to cmd dot execute non-query, and that's it. So if the query is executed successfully, then the value of rows will be greater than 0, else it will be 0. So let's check it out if the query is executed successfully or not. So if rows is greater than 0, then query executed successfully, and the value of is success will be true, else fail to execute query, and the value of is success remains false. Its success is equal to false. So that's it, guys. We have successfully created methods to select the data from database, insert, update, and delete the data from database for our user module in blood bank management system. Later we might need to add more methods for our user module, and we will create it later. So this is it for this episode. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And if you have any confusion related to this video, then don't forget to comment. I'll reply as soon as possible. So and in the next episode, we will add actual functionality to add, update, delete and visualize data in our user form. And till then, see you soon. Bye bye.